Alright, I'm going to take a moment here to explain to all you libtards why President Donald J. Trump is using the term Chinese virus. One reason is because, firstly, the Chinese Communist Party is claiming that the virus came from the United States, that the military, the United States military, gave the virus and infected the people in China. So their propaganda machine is flipping everything. We all know the virus came from China. It started in China. The propaganda machine is flipping everything, making it look like America is the bad guy once again. And they're saying that they, the Chinese Communist Party, are going to be able to save everyone because communism is so great and they only need to go through one leader to get all these things done. Meanwhile, while in America, they have all these problems because they have democracy and they have to go through all these different channels to get things done. It's not as efficient, so the virus is going to wipe out more Americans. That's what they're saying. And that's why President Trump is calling it the Chinese virus. It's not racist. It's not a stigma. President Donald J. Trump is not a racist. He has never done or said anything racist. All of these things have been manipulated by the fake news media. I'll get more to in the future, all of the great things that Donald J. Trump has done in regards to destroying racism in the United States, but that's for another video. Here, we need to discuss for a moment the difference between China, with 5,000 years of beautiful history. There are many, many dynasties, okay, that make up Chinese history. It's a very long, very traditional and ancient culture. And we have to distinguish that between that and the Chinese Communist Party, which came into power in 1949. So that gives it little more than 70 years of history, and 70 years of quite destructive history, to be quite frank with you. So firstly, we all know that communism did not originate in China. The Chinese took communism, which formed in Europe, was developed in Europe, was perfected in Russia, and then in Russia, the Soviet Union, from there they took it to China. You know, that guy Karl Marx, he came up with his theories on Marxism. You know, talk about Marx for a moment, is he was working for a newspaper company, and the newspaper company, he was actually going through some financial difficulty. John F. Kennedy gives a speech where he talks about this, and he kind of makes a joke about it. He does it at a journalist convention. Anyway, and Karl Marx was really low on finances, and he needed some money because his family was not doing too well. And so he went to his bosses at the newspaper company and asked for an advance on his salary. He asked for money, basically, and they told him no. And basically, it's from that point on where he quit his job and, started devising all of these really bad thoughts. You know, a lot of people, we now understand that he was getting into Satanism. If you look at a lot of his poems at that time, he's talking about Lucifer and selling his soul and overcoming the world with darkness and all this kind of stuff. So anyway, on that note, I really have to point out that capitalism, of course, does have its flaws. Where are its flaws? If human beings do not have any filters to monitor their minds off of profit and gain, it can actually be damaging to other people. You know, if his boss had understood that Karl Marx was not in a great situation and had helped him out, maybe he never comes up with his crazy theories, right? So, that need for profit at any cost is really, really damaging, and that is the big flaw with capitalism. But that in itself is not capitalism's fault. That's an issue with people, human beings. Capitalism itself is not causing the issue. The idea that you work for as much as you obtain, that's a very natural thing. That's a very, very natural state that you see in society, okay? What human beings do is they put their own needs, their own desires for profit. And actually behind profit, we'll find, is actually emotion. what governs all of these things, all of these companies and all of this stuff is actually emotion. And in many cases, it's emotion in the form of family, nepotism. So you see a lot of these things, a lot of these companies, a lot of this money is caught up in nepotism. Is people are not necessarily qualified to be doing what they are doing, but they're using this money and using this emotion to basically govern their lives. And so that's the negative side of capitalism. But communism is far, far worse, because what it does is it takes away the freedoms of people. It takes away their hope for prosperity, their hope for work, all of these things, and it strips them of that. The idea that everyone is equal. Everyone is not equal. We all know that. People are born different sizes. People are born with different mental capacities. People are born into different social status, all of these kind of things. And society can still function with that. But to strip people of all of these things, there's something far more sinister going on behind it. Because once you strip people of all of these liberties, who is governing the country? It's people. And if you give people too much power and too much influence over these other people who don't have any, you've got some problems. And so we look at the history of communism from when it spread into the Soviet Union and then into China. It's really, really, really bad. The type of things that they did to their own people, killing millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of their own people in the name of communism, in the name of protecting this great house of communism. So we have to be able to distinguish that the Chinese Communist Party is not China. The Chinese Communist Party was born in 1949, or it came to power in 1949, because China was pretty desperate. Historically, if you look at that time, they'd gone through a lot of famines. They had gone through a lot of wars with Japan in particular. Their own leadership was not very good. And so they basically said, well, someone take care of us, someone figure out this situation so we're not in this horrible situation anymore. And so when you're in a really bad state, let's say you're really, really sick and you go to the doctor, you tell the doctor, give me anything. I don't care what it is. Just give me something, and you don't think of the ramifications of what he may be giving you, whether, it's an injection or some pill or, something that may not really be good for you. So we have to make that distinction. China is not the Chinese Communist Party. Chinese Communist Party is not China. Chinese Communist Party will fall eventually. It'll probably happen just one day suddenly. That's kind of how the Soviet Union fell. It just kind of happened. It was in the Berlin Wall fell in 1989. So it's gonna fall at some point, and China will continue to, thrive as a beautiful country, but there's going to be a lot of time where people are going to have to reflect on what happened, the atrocities that took place in China, such as organ harvesting. They have been killing and are continuing to kill their own people for their organs, selling it on the black market. Just the horrible things that they did. I mean, it'll be like the Nuremberg trials, like what the Nazis underwent, but multiply it by 1 trillion. It's going to be something really serious. And I think humanity is going to have to take a lot of time to reflect on itself, and how you move forward. Because as you all know, when someone undergoes some sort of trauma, it's not as easy as, well, the trauma is over, so get over it and move on with your life. It's not that simple. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of love and compassion and understanding and guidance and help. So that's why here at Aquarius 3E, that's what I try to do with my life, my family. My wife is Chinese wife. She's very delicate. She goes through her ups and downs. She misses her country and all of these things, and I have to help her through that. And she also helps me to understand the divine culture. So we have to learn how to work together.